Hi, how are you guys doing? Feeling good? There are a lot of you guys seated all the way back there. It'd be nice if you could come up front, maybe a bit closer. Shehan, starting with you. Come on. So, for those of you who don't know us, I'm Arjun, and this is my brother Vijay. He plays bass guitar, and I play lead, and I sometimes sing as well. Now, Derek covered a lot of the basics involved with playing music and playing the guitar especially. What I'd like to do is talk to you about music in general. You might find that I have a bit of a wide and sometimes maybe a bit of a scattered approach to it because I'm trying to bring in as many aspects of it as possible together, but bear with me. So this presentation is going to be divided into two segments. First, I'm going to talk to you about music. Don't worry, I won't bore you guys by talking for too long. I'll keep it short and sweet. And then Vijay is going to join me in playing some music. So before I jump into it, I'd like to tell you a couple of things about myself and what I've been doing. I've spent the last 10 years studying the nature of music and its impact on consciousness. And I've also been listening to and playing music. Now this is a subject that we can really go into in great depth, but as I said, I'm going to keep this short and sweet, and I'm going to share some of the things that I've learned. Music is all around you. All you have to do is listen. But then, the question is why? Why is music all around you? Why listen to it? Music is vibration, and vibrations are wave motion. And wave motions are at the base of what we experience as matter. Let me elaborate. We know that the human hearing range is limited to frequencies between 20 and 20,000 hertz. And we know that animals are capable of perceiving sound from beyond that frequency. Now, I've come to know that it's possible to hear the sound of large objects. For example, Venus. It's possible to listen to the song that she sings while she spins on her axis. So with the right tools and technology, we can listen to the sound of matter right down to the subatomic level. So we listen to music because it matters. It matters not only because it's at the base of our experience of matter, but because of the way it influences the way in which we relate to matter. How does it influence the way we relate to matter? It's the glue that holds together the world in ways that we think it should be. Now again, let me elaborate. From what we know, if we go back in time, from what we know, we can see that music was the fundamental basis of communication from which language emerged. And humans are capable of making a wide variety of sounds. This is something unique to us, something that no other mammal is capable of, with the exception of birds. See the two up there. Now, how is this possible? This is possible through the development of the hypoglossal nerve. There you go, it's that yellow thing over there. Now, this gave us a lot of control over our tongue and the ability to make these intricate sounds. I think now you can get an idea of where I'm going with this. Now these sounds, when combined together, form words. And through combining these words together, we were able to communicate much more than what we could with just those sounds alone. Another interesting thing to note, music combined with pictures forms what we know as written language. So I told you about communication. But now let's look at what we communicated. What did we communicate? We communicate ideas, perception, and stories. Now stories, these are very important because through telling each other these stories, we were able to create social structures that enabled us to cooperate on large numbers. To the point where now you see we have this global civilization, right? We cooperate as a species on the entire planet. And if we look at, for example, now this is something again that is unique only to humans. If you look at chimpanzees, you don't see them cooperating on a global level, right? That's because chimpanzees don't have the capacity to tell these stories, and therefore they are limited to certain bands which can only have a certain number of individuals, and when that number exceeds, they split and naturally form other bands, and these bands can't collaborate, right? Now I'd like to take you back. So we're going to be starting from back, and it's kind of a bit like a history lesson, but really condensed. So we're going to be going through the stages and see how the role that music played. So going back to the time of the hunter-gatherer tribes, music accompanied the recitation of their historical narratives, the accomplishments of the tribe, and their great heroes. Now this gave the tribe an identity. Now this identity was something, it was a concept, it was a cognitive package, something they could carry with them in their minds. And even when they were far away from their tribe, they still saw themselves as part of that tribe. Now this is important because this gave them the ability to wander around and explore without being limited to one particular territory. Now let's look at some of the changes that came with settled agriculture. Now the hunter-gatherer way of life demanded intense focus, but for brief periods of time, because naturally you won't spend the whole day hunting. When they hunted, they came back, they shared the food that they gathered, and then they had a lot of time to spend telling each other stories and maybe singing and dancing. But we don't have too much of evidence as to what exactly they did, but we kind of get the idea. Whereas with settled agriculture, it wasn't that way. You spent long hours cultivating your crops, finding water, you bred livestock. So this demanded a wider focus and for long periods of time. So now we see these stories change. The stories had to become more complex because there had to be more complex social structures to hold these things in people's mind. So naturally, the music that accompanied this story also became complex. Another one of the interesting things I'd like to note, aside from the role of entertainment during this time when settled agriculture emerged, there was also an increase in violence and war, because you will be defending, you had to defend your settlement, and you also had to go out and conquer other settlements for resources. So an interesting role that music played here in war, it sent people out willingly to fight for something much bigger than themselves, with a willingness to sacrifice themselves for that. Now this goes against the very basic instinct of self-preservation. So you start to see now the powerful role that music has been playing. So let's jump on to the Industrial Revolution. We see that again these stories become more and more complex. As our civilization becomes more complex, through the stories that we tell each other, the music also becomes richer and more complex. And religion becomes entwined with the state, and an entire new set of stories to legitimize and strengthen the state began to emerge, and also encourage the expansion of the state. Now, being born into a Christian family, I can relate this to the church organ, because there are the scriptures which you are taught. These are again these stories, these concepts, and then when you go to church, you sing these same stories in the form of hymns, accompanied with music. So now this gives you a different understanding of these stories. So they are no longer just, it's not a conceptual understanding, it sits with you as a feeling and on an emotional level. So now let's look at the role that music played up to the 20th century. Music at this point was used to restrict and keep thinking focused on certain specific areas of life. For example, reproduction, the accumulation of wealth and success. Most of what we call mainstream music, I think you know that's pretty much the objective behind it and what is pumping into your head 24/7. Then these stories began to change. The empires collapsed and a very rich repertoire of music emerged to help people deal with these critical times, and this also led to the emergence of new musical instruments. In the 21st century, the most recent trend is the expression of concern related to the changes that we are facing and the accelerated pace at which these changes are taking place, especially global climate change and the changes in the economy and access to resources, again, which are finite. With this global change, now we see again these stories are changing. We were taught a story of a civilization based on growth. We were taught the story that resources are infinite, that we can keep on consuming and growing larger and larger and larger, and this was the basic objective of our civilization. And now we see these stories again begin to change. So with the UN's goals to change towards sustainable development by 2050, we can expect that with the changes in these stories, a lot of changes to come about in music. So we see that these stories that legitimize human existence and music are closely intertwined. It's as though the stories have always been sung and the musical instruments that accompanied them have emerged as a reflection of the technology of the time. Now let's come to the most important story of our time. Now this I don't think I need to tell you, because we are all here alive at this time. We all feel, we know, even if it may be on a subconscious level, we know what's going on, right? So now I'm going to play some music for you. And I want you to reflect on these things and then maybe get some feedback from you. So this is why those of you seated at the back, again, it would be nice if you could be a little bit closer. Now I'd like you to listen to this music very carefully and pay attention to the thoughts that may arise in your mind. You can close your eyes and listen to it if you like. So pay close attention to thoughts, images and feelings that arise in you while you listen to this music. Right. Now, I'd like to hear from you what you experience when you listen to that music. So, okay, tell me, was it a happy sounding song or sad sounding song or anything?
Really calm and soothing.
Sorry?
Soothing.
Soothing.
Sound like a melancholy.
Right, you're onto something there. Okay.
Made
Anyone
me
else?
feel kind of introspective.
Introspective. Okay.
Sort of going on a journey. Going on a journey.
Going on a journey. Interesting. We are starting to see that this music has a different kind of impact on different people. Not everyone has the exact same experience. But another interesting fact that I am noting is it also has a similar theme to it. Sheha, what about you? I see you smiling. It seems like you have a lot to say. Don't feel shy.
Like we are in a different state.
Okay. So, I think you said it gave a melancholic kind of feel, and Dr. B said it gave an introspective as well as at the same time kind of a relaxing feel. Now, this story reflects something that we are all going through right now. We are searching inside ourselves for answers, because when we see the world around us, it's not always a very happy sight that we see, right? So it's quite natural that we would feel this way when we are looking at everything that's going around us, and it's quite natural that when all the answers that we are finding outside don't make sense, we would turn to look inside ourselves for those answers.